Hello, this is the HAARP report. There's very strong evidence of hurricane suppression using the ionospheric heater technology in the Caribbean right now. This diffuse low pressure here is Tropical Depression Karen, and it has just passed north of Puerto Rico, and it's been predicted to organize, and yet it has not been able to organize. This morning it had a deep furrow cut through the middle of it, and then there's this powerful upper low of circulation with a big concentric area of circles. This is the HAARP Downburst, and I'll show all this in animation here in a minute. So the megawatt U.S. Navy ships heat the ionosphere in this area. It expands explosively 30 to 50 miles up. It presses downward into the jet stream, and then we see these concentric rings as a result. And it also compresses the storms downward so that they stop forming, and they also stop turning counterclockwise. They turn clockwise. This is pretty much proof of ionospheric heaters. And why are they trying to suppress it right there? It's because by the end of the week, there is going to be a dome of high pressure here off the east coast of the U.S. And so if any hurricane forms in this area, it's going to be pushed straight into Florida. So this operation here, again, is about the Hurricane Futures racketeering crime syndicate, where the homeowners pay their homeowners insurance. The insurance companies buy basically contracts to protect their losses, and some nebulous Wall Street bank or someone with very deep pockets and a connection to the U.S. Navy brass pay for this protection. So even though the American taxpayers have paid hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars to create this technology, they don't own it. This is owned by a very, very few private individuals who consider it their private property. So let's have a look at the animation here, and you can see here you've got an upper low spinning strongly, and that's like a vacuum cleaner at the surface. That's going to create low pressure at the surface. But first I want to show this very, very odd thing that happened. There's a furrow cut right through the clouds at daybreak, and unfortunately I didn't get the early frames at daybreak, but so here's Karen, and it is trying to organize into a tropical storm, and at daybreak you have this straight notch cut right through it. Very strange. Can't explain it other than maybe it's an incredibly powerful microwave transmitter. Who knows? And now we look at, you can see here's the upper low. And what I believe is being done here is basically it's a supercomputer experiment. They pool all their satellite data, which is an incredible amount of data, and they are going to keep the surface low over here and position the upper low over here, because if you can keep them separate, a hurricane can never form. A hurricane has to have low pressure all the way up, and then it's God's or Hell's blender is what Spherics called it. Anyway, Hell's blender. It has to be a low pressure from the surface all the way up, basically to the jet stream. So here they are trying to keep them separate, but this upper low is so strong. Look what happens as the day wears on. It starts sucking up some, or creating some thunderstorms in the center. But let's look right at the bottom here, because this is where those HAARP rings form. So here you have concentric rings, and if you back up just a little bit, you can sort of see the formation, the initialization here, with some other rings off to the side a bit. But while this downburst is happening, there's no counterclockwise rotation. See, it's static. Now we get our concentric rings, and then those press down to the surface. They clear out the storms, and then once those downward pulses end, you get strong storm development and counterclockwise movement. And then it gets dark, so let's look again in the morning. So at daybreak, really nothing's happening, and just go slow here. You know, there's some clouds here, but they're not really bubbling up to storms. There may be some downdraft activity here, but mid-afternoon you start having a bunch of storms build up, and that's when they bring out the ionospheric heaters. And I've noticed this again and again with this classified weather technology, is that it's only used when it's really needed, because the risk of exposure from casual use is too high. So back up. So, I mean, it's pretty easy to see these concentric rings, and they persist for, boy, looks like about an hour. So let's just, and look, I mean, they're visible from space, they're huge. Now, if you had colliding air masses high up, what they call convergence, then you could have some air being pressed down, but it's, you know, generally a line or a region, not a single point like this, and not repeated. So this is a HAARP downburst. Ionosphere, it's artificial man-made pressure in the jet stream. And again, it's done to prevent a new hurricane from spinning up and hitting Florida because of the gangster protection racket. So even though you taxpayers paid for this technology, you don't own any of it. You have to keep paying and paying and paying. What's that gangster cliche? That's a nice state you got there. It'd be a shame if something was to happen to it. And I apologize, I haven't been making any videos lately, but my old computer really crapped out. It was a Dell motherboard, and it had 7 bulged capacitors, and each bit of software that I was using got worse and worse and worse. And I don't know, I think it was some kind of virus that was loaded gradually to overload the motherboard, because I've never seen a Dell motherboard fail that way. So hopefully I'll be able to make more videos, and thanks for watching.